Welcome back to Stooge Stream. This is your WCPW Stacked recap. I'm your host, the Stooge, and with me as always is a knockout Fiona.
Welcome, viewers/listeners.
So this was a huge show. WCPW puts on pay-per-view quality events for free every now and then. Stacked being the second one. Just wow. But before we go too far into an overview, let's break it all down piece by piece. And before the show even started, we had an unseen dark match with Prince Amin and Gabriel Kidd versus Johnny Moss and Liam Slater. This was actually called by King Ross and Adam Blumpier.
My bae, King Ross. I'm a loyal subject because he's a sick guy.
Love that. Well done.
Can I just go on the record and say I detest the word bae and its usages, but I will dish it out endlessly for Mr. King Ross. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. And I am BX for life. So this match is interesting. It's part of the whole story arc with Gabriel Kidd being Prince Amin's slave or manservant or whatever really horrible term you want to use for it.
Rent boy.
Rent boy. All of them don't sound good. Johnny Moss and Liam Slater won the match. What did you think of the match?
I love Prince Amin. He's obviously been doing the indie circuits for a long time. I just love when someone commits to a heel character like that and the sort of comedy element to it. Moss is such a Goldberg, and the crowd certainly agreed with that quite often throughout the match. Not quite as tall as Goldberg, I noted, but he reminds me of an old boss I had once, which is also a bit disturbing. It was definitely good warm-up match. I think Gabriel Kidd he's going to go on to do great things. He's only 19.
Yeah, the potential he has is amazing. And
I enjoy watching him in the ring.
I like the story elements as well. That's slowly breaking up Prince Amin and Gabriel Kidd, with Gabriel Kidd joining Johnny Moss and Liam Slater, leaving together at the end of the match. I really like that angle as well. That kind of pays off later in the show too.
Yeah, and I like how it's called by the WCPW guys just to differentiate from the main card. Although I wish King Ross was still on main commentary.
Yes. Now let's get to Stacked, the first match on the main card. This just opened cold with Joe Coffey versus Moose.
God, enough already. I think I'm the only person who's not on the Moose train.
She just doesn't get it. It's all about the Moose.
It's all about the pulling the truck horn
Moose
bicep. What do we call that? Yeah.
Moose. Anyway, I really enjoyed the match. So there's one thing that I really need to point out straight away is the ICW influence in WCPW needs to go away. The crowd spots are dangerous. They knocked a dude over in a wheelchair this time around. And they're lucky he was in a wheelchair, because you might put someone in a wheelchair doing these crowd spots. I want to see the end of that.
Yes. King Ross Sire, if that's not in your WTF moments from this episode of Stacked, then something is wrong. Yeah. I mean, Coffey obviously loves his over-the-barrier dives, but they need to manage it better. They need to put in better safeguards and risk what's the word? Risk assessments, guys. Come on, your insurance.
Getting taken to court for hurting someone is not worth it. But in saying that, the rest of the match, I really enjoyed. It's nice to see Moose actually get to wrestle rather than just be the bouncer, bodyguard, foil for Miracle in TNA. And the quote-unquote matches he's had in TNA have just been him being the big guy, laying the big hits, and that's about it. In this match, being matched up against somebody who was a big guy as well, it was good to see him actually get in the ring and have a decent match. And you can see mechanically, he's good in the ring. I want to see more of Moose roll around in the ring. Like, he's really good. And Joe Coffey is amazing. The Iron Man's great.
I have put a note here in my little notes to self. Is Coffey risky? Well, I mean, we've covered that, but...
But it's just that crowd spot. Everything else seems okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Coffee is deceptively strong though. I'll give him that. All
Yeah,
that rugby training, that solid base. Yeah.
Amazing.
I was really actually impressed how much the crowd was behind Coffee as the hometown man. You know,
Yeah.
with Moose, a big megastar from Ring of Honor TNA coming in. They were divided, but there were clear chants for Coffee, which was really good to hear.
Okay, so Moose won this. Now, that was another fault with this match. Joe Coffey should have won this, being the like. There's no point putting Moose over unless he's going to be coming back, which they've said that this was his debut in WCPW. If he's going to come back regularly, then fair enough. But if he doesn't come back regularly, it was just a wasted opportunity to put Joe Coffey over an international star.
Yeah, especially after such an epic match last week where he had a great victory.
All right, so next up, we had a segment with Adam Blumpier and Eric Bischoff and Adam Pacitti, or Parmesan, as he should be known. So, firstly, I was amazed at Eric Bischoff, how much he put over WCPW.
And like, just so matter-of-factly as well, without any pageantry, without any sort of colour calls. It was...
No, he just put over, like, he genuinely enjoys the product. He's probably watched a little bit of it over the past couple of weeks as he's been booked to come on. And you can see he likes the product and what they're doing. Then he got into the storyline angle with Adam Blumpier, where he said, I'm about to bestow, my heir to the throne on Adam. And Pacitti came out and he said, here is the dude that I'm handing it over to. Blumpier had a full heel cry. It was really well done. It was well acted, well performed. Blumpier and Prospect got ejected from the build. Blumpier got ejected from the building and Prospect were banned from entering the building. This played out through the whole rest of the show with little skits and bits and pieces, like Prospect trying to get in and trying to bribe security guards and stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I thought that's old school wrestling. You have to have those little breaks and little skits and a little bit of pageantry to mix in with the actual action.
Without the OTT soap opera melodrama.
Yeah, it was just cute little skits.
Yeah, and I mean, because it is What Culture's wrestling product, it's cute that they incorporate their own staff into these as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's theirs. At first I was a bit like, really? But
it works well with Susie being the Primates manager and so forth. And all right. So anyway, getting on to the next match. Again, I really enjoyed those little segments all throughout the show. We had EC3 versus El Ligero versus Pete Dunne. This was a really good match. EC3 looked like he was having the time of his life. Like he was just enjoying being a fool, having a great time, and getting to put on a great wrestling performance with two great wrestlers being El Ligero and Pete Dunne.
Ligero.
I was waiting for you to correct me. That was a joke from the first episode of WCPW Loaded where Simon kept getting it wrong and Keegan Ross had to keep correcting him. All right. So what did you think of this match?
Well, obviously EC3 is our wrestler of the moment. He is, our number one in this household. Was that a fair call?
It would be. Like, we've been behind EC3 since he first debuted in TNA. And we were looking forward to the face turn, but we were cheering him as a heel. And just, he face turned, transitioned so well. And he's great on the mic. I think he's a great all-around entertainer and a great wrestler as well.
Yeah, it was a little bit random seeing him in the indies, I have to say. I mean, I still regard WCPW as an indie promotion. It has all the elements and feel of it. I wonder though, like, I mean, he's obviously a top performer and he knows his stuff, but is there a risk factor in coming to the indies? Like, I mean, he obviously TNA's storyline is pitted on him being the guy carrying it through. I mean, come on, Bound for Glory predictions, boring much, but is it like what? Is there a risk factor there, or do they just have to let them go?
They just have to let them go for the amount that they pay them.
I mean, I love El Ligero. I've ever since we saw him
El Ligero.
And Pete Dunne was an interesting mix as well. I don't know about the three of them. I really could have just seen EC3 and El Ligero together, to be honest. I didn't know how successful this three-way was.
Look, I liked the match, and I thought the fact that we hadn't seen Pete Dunne before, putting him in a match with obviously someone who's so over with the hometown crowd of El Ligero, and EC3 being a huge international star, really helped cement him as part of the WCPW roster. Now, you have to think of booking from that angle as well, due to the fact that they are still new and fresh, and they're still introducing new characters and people constantly. They need to cement them as quickly as possible to get them over with the crowd as heels or faces. In this case, Pete Dunne being a heel. But they do really need to work quickly to get them over, because they've got a lot of stuff to do in the future. So they need to get their stars over now. So it's like the origin story, you know what I mean? So it's a great way of introducing Pete Dunne, because he had a great match against El Ligero and EC3.
Yes, and that definite old school British style, and WCPW clearly positioning themselves as being, a modern British wrestling offering.
A World of Wrestling equivalent.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
world.
So it's good to have that homage to this is the roots of British wrestling. Yeah.
It was. Now, El Ligero won the match deservedly, because it was great, but it looked like he did hurt his ankle when he did that jump over the ropes onto the barrier. This is why I'm saying that type of stuff needs to really stop. Let's keep these guys safe. His ankle looked bad, and I hope he really hasn't hurt himself.
I hope you're okay, El Ligero.
Yeah, we wish you a quick recovery, and we hope it's nothing.
Did you see the crowd, the member of the audience, gestured to him, "Are you okay?" And he did the hand,
half,
quasi,
That wasn't good. All right. Next up on the card, we had Doug Williams versus Drew Galloway. This was a real British old school style World of Sports match. This was as British of a match as it got. A lot of mat wrestling holds. It was really, really well done. I really enjoyed this match. Doug Williams is an amazing worker. We've seen him for years. Since he first came into TNA was when we learned about him initially. Just a brilliant worker. And Drew Galloway is... this is another person that WWE missed the ball on. He made himself a superstar once he left WWE. Excuse me. He's really excelling over the past couple of years with his independent work, and his work in TNA and so forth. And this was just another showing. He is a wrestler. He can hang with Doug Williams. Oh,
yeah. Drew, he looked good too. He's looking in top shape. He's fit and so strong. I was a little bit disappointed there was no package for this match. I would have liked to have seen either of them had some words to begin with, or some sort of backstage, or I know they don't do video packages in WCPW, but I felt it was a bit cold going in. I felt I needed a bit more of a scene setting context build up.
All you had was last week, Doug Williams doing that whole, these Americans coming over here, and they're like, well, what about Drew Galloway? He's British and he makes money. I'm going to go talk to Parmesan about that, and runs off. Look, I agree with you, but in saying that, not all matches need to be built up to superstar status. Sometimes these guys can just go into the ring and just put on a show. And that's what they did. They went in there and just put on a technical show for all of us to appreciate.
Yeah, I think you're right. Drew Galloway came in quite seriously. He didn't need to capitalize on his star power, nor did Doug Williams. I don't know. I found it a little bit slow. I guess maybe that's the style of wrestling.
That's the British wrestling style, yeah. Anyway, Galloway won the match.
Yes.
So this is where I'm going to be the reverse of what I said prior, because Doug Williams doesn't need the win. Neither did Galloway. Either one of them winning this match would have been absolutely fine. So Galloway walking away with the win in this, I have no problems with, and I'm sure we're going to see him again in WCPW. This actually works in Doug Williams' favour, because he can do the whiny heel now of the outsider that came and beat him and stuff, and that will work into his story arc that they're doing at the moment as Mr. Britex and so forth. So Brexit, sorry. So that was really good.
It was good. One takeaway I have noted from this match, though, was I previously had been quite enamored with Alex Shane, but this match, he was over the top. His commentary was just like he's off, he's tangenting off the planet remarks.
Was a bit much.
It got too much.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, rein it in, please. Like,
but he did in the next match, and he kind of reined it in for the rest of the show.
He did, but it was funny. He would make this ludicrous like calls and have these ridiculous back and forths with Dave Bradshaw, but then he would actually call the play-by-play. It was a bit like,
it was kind of weird.
It was
and
weird.
Being the fact that half the time the commentary is completely smarky.
Yes.
And the other half the time it's kayfabe. It's like, pick one or the other. You know your audience is a smarky audience. You can talk to us in wrestling terms and just call the matches and stuff. You don't have to. We don't need the jokey commentary on top of it. Like, we're not watching WWE product. But half the time he does it really well and half the time he doesn't. So it's kind of hard to say, like, no, don't do it, because sometimes he does it so well and it's hilarious.
He's very quick and some of his jokes are ridiculous, but...
So, and I still like him as a commentator,
Definitely.
All right, next up we had Will Ospreay versus Marty Scurll. Wow. All I've got here is amazing match.
I have no notes for this. What can be said?
It was breathtaking. Both of these guys are amazing athletes, amazing wrestlers. This is wrestling. Full stop. That was just an amazing display of athleticism, talent, storytelling. They told a great little story in the context of a match itself with no promos, no intros, no nothing. But even within the context of the match, they told a great little story.
It for me felt like we're watching the new generation of, these amazing wrestlers we're seeing now as superstars, on the likes of AJ Styles, Samoa Joe and Daniels back in the old days of TNA when they'd have their amazing three-ways. And then Dave Bradshaw went on to reference that Will Ospreay was inspired to get into wrestling by one of said matches.
Yeah, and you can see that in style.
I also observed that it never really occurred to me, because I just loved him so much back in the day until you pointed it out from an interview, that AJ had to learn to sell more. And these guys really don't sell that much, They
don't, but it's a different style. This is. But they still are great actors, because Marty Scurll and Will Ospreay both told a great story in that match too. So it was good. Next up...
Scurll. I'm perplexed by his name, but anyway.
All right, next up we had Martin Kirby and Travis Banks, a New Zealander, versus Liam Slater and Gabriel Kidd. So I've heard of Travis Banks reading the rags and so forth, but I have never seen him perform. This was a great way of getting him on as a heel as well, because Martin Kirby has just kind of turned face with the match that he had Will Ospreay previously on an episode of Loaded. So...
can I just say, I've put that match in my match of the year contenders.
Yeah, definitely. That was amazing.
Honestly, I have. Yeah.
So Kirby and Banks had a great dynamic. I thought that was really good, the way they played off each other. Liam Slater came out and... what is his name? Johnny Moss had been injured in the match previous. It said that he had a dislocated elbow. So Prince Armin came out and offered to be his tag team partner. And as Armin was playing up to the crowd, Gabriel Kidd jumped in the ring, shook his hand and said, "I'll be your partner." And they kicked Armin out. So this continues the dark match story arc and the whole Prince Armin, Gabriel Kidd story arc, which I really like. This match was really good too. I really enjoyed it. I thought all of these guys had a great dynamic. Gabriel Kidd did get his nose busted open, but it's...
No, not Gabriel Kidd, Slater.
Liam Slater got his nose busted open, but it's just a broken nose. It's not anything... In the context of what they're doing, when serious injuries can happen...
Finn Balor.
Yeah, and so forth. Like, it's just a broken nose, so it's not too bad. It didn't stop him from performing.
No, and kudos to that. It was probably Travis Banks. He's a hard style hitting heel, but he might have been just a little bit too eager to prove himself on an international stage like that.
I think so. But in saying that, the rest of the match was really safe and really well done. It's just accidents happen, and it wasn't a bad one either. It's just, again, a busted nose. He maybe will talk funny for a few days, and that's about it. Again, the dynamic of all four of them was really, really great. Martin Kirby is incredibly over with the crowd now.
I would just like to point out, I have written Kirby, and I've done a little love heart as the eye dot.
Aww.
I know.
But no, Kirby's over as... I don't even know how to describe how over Kirby is now for somehow. Like,
Deservedly so.
yeah. Now, Kirby and Banks won the match, which was kind of deserved. Kirby deserves the win. I think he's worked hard over the very short period of time he's been in WCPW to get himself over. And he got himself over. He got Travis Banks over as a heel while getting himself over as a face at the end. So I really enjoyed it. I think Kirby can tell a great story in the context of a match. And he did a great job of telling the story of him being a good guy now, while putting the new guy over as a heel, while putting the two other guys over too, and still winning the match somehow.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of Martin Kirby. That's for sure.
Next
More
up...
Zoidberg elbow.
Yeah, we missed out this match. Next up, we had Adam Pacitti unveiling the women's title, and unlike the WWE Universal title, it actually looks decent.
It's red. I like the red. It's not pink, but it's still colourful.
It's red, but it suits the WC and the WCPW matches, the colour scheme and so forth. I think it looks decent. Now, they had to, if you unveil a title, you got to give it to someone, so they had to have a match, and that was Nixon Newell versus Bree Priestley in a last woman standing match for the WCPW Women's Championship. These two girls have had two great matches leading up to this with one win each, this being the blow-off rubber band match. So what's going to happen? Nixon Newell is the first women's champion, which I called in the first women's match that they had. The match itself, though, was brutal.
It was shorter and sharper, but it was much more hard hitting.
It was. These girls had
many a chair.
A hardcore match. That ending with Nixon Newell trapping Bree's head in the chair and then punting her in the skull was brutal. That was brutal. But yet, it was very safe. Like, that's just, if you hear noises in the background, that's my cat running around. Ignore it. It was very safe. It was a very well done match. But that end bit, wow, that just looked shocking. From the camera angle, the way that they presented it, if we'd seen it from a different angle, we probably would have seen a completely missed kick. But the way that they shot that and presented it, it looked fantastic.
I was a little bit disappointed with the crowd during this match, though.
They were a little bit flat, but you have to keep in mind that they'd just seen that four-way match beforehand.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay and Marty Scurll before that. El Ligero and EC3, Doug Williams, it was this card was massive. There was nowhere to safely put this match.
No, could it have been second or something, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe, but you also need a break in between the bigger matches. So I think this match being a hardcore match played that off, and the next match being a comedy match played that.
Yeah.
So the crowd kind of had some time to process before the main event.
They started back on the Moose chant.
No, they did that throughout the whole show.
But noticeably so for them. I'm probably just a bit more sensitive to it because, girl power and all that.
It was a great match.
Support the ladies.
Great match. This is how women's wrestling should be presented, not as they're dainty little girls. These girls presented themselves as athletes, warriors. Yeah, it was just great. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see more women introduced into the division. Yeah,
definitely. I would have actually preferred it to be one. I would think that would have been more interesting. But...
You always love a heel.
I do. There is a pattern occurring here, isn't there?
There is. All right, next up again, this is a match that you have a match like this prior to the main event to kind of chill the crowd out so they can be charged up again for the main event, and it was Grado versus Primate. Grado again is just incredibly over.
He's so over.
Ridiculously so. And when the match started, I even said to you, Grado doesn't need the win. He's so over, it's ridiculous.
It's your cell. Yeah.
But Primate needs a win.
Can someone explain to me what it's your cell means?
I don't know.
I could Google it, but...
Primate really needed a win, and he got it. With interference from Susie, which works perfectly. And I think they really need to do something with Primate in the next coming weeks. Let him maybe take a jobber or two out.
Yeah.
build up his character a little bit,
Yeah.
and then send him back into the main event scene as a monster again.
Okay.
Because now you have somebody that Primate is a monster against, rather than somebody massive. Like you can't put Primate against Big Damo and make Primate look like a monster, but someone else you could. So that's why you need some time in between and all the rest of it. But you need to build him back up because he's taken some losses. Build him back up as a monster, job a couple of people out to him, and then send him back into the main event scene.
Okay, we'll watch this space. Well, he did spit in the face of an audience member.
Oh, that was great.
It's like, you want to chop me like that, kid?
Yeah, that was in the sequence where Grado was holding him for the audience to chop him. Kid took it a little bit too far. You could see it. Just chopped him so hard.
Teenager, all that.
Yeah, just didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And Primate came back and just spat in his face. Like it was quite full on.
I did notice at the end of that match, they still have their pissy little bell.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, like,
That needs
one
to
of
die.
the tea time bells in Downton Abbey has more balls in their bell. Like, they need to... Are they taking the piss at this point?
I have no idea. All right. So because of how big this card is, this show has gone for a while. So let's wrap up the main event. We've got Big Damo versus Rampage versus Joseph Connors versus Joe Hendry for the WCPW title. This is a fatal four-way match, as all fatal four-ways work. Big Damo doesn't have to be pinned or submitted to lose the title. Anyone can be pinned. Anyone can be submitted. I really enjoyed this match. Now, for a couple of different reasons. I thought it got Rampage over really well. I thought it got Big Damo over really well. I thought it got Joe Hendry over really well. And I thought it got Joseph Connors over really well. Now, we're going to spoil the ending by telling you now that Joseph Connors won the title by doing a massive heel turn on Joe Hendry and splitting up their tag team and going full crazy heel. He was doing crazy eyes like there wasn't any other crazy eyes left in the world.
Epic heel facials. Clearly, Joseph Connors listens to our YouTube vodcast, because thank you for shaving that seedy mustache.
Yeah, and going righteous Joseph Connors on that title.
Rick's predicted heel turn happened.
Now, first, before we talk about any of the spots in the match, just quickly, Joe Hendry using the opening song from Sonic Adventure. I think it's called Let Me Be Free or something. As his opening theme song was just like, oh, dude, you are awesome. Nod to geeks. I'm a huge gamer. If you watch the channel, you're probably aware of that by now. I own a Dreamcast and I've got Sonic Adventure. So thank you.
Just when you didn't think you could love Joe Hendry anymore.
Yeah. So a couple of spots from the match that I wanted to point out. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole match. Just a couple of small spots in the actual match itself. So one of them that I wanted to point out was Joe Hendry's Freak of Nature on Big Damo. Like, oh my God, Big Damo is so big. Joe Hendry is a powerful human being.
Yeah, all that training is paying off.
Yeah, that was awesome. Rampage dropping Big Damo on the ramp. And the ramp nearly breaking. Yeah.
Oh.
That was massive. Big Damo did a couple of massive moves. I thought the opening sequence of him throwing everyone off and then punching everyone to show just how big of a dude he was really well done.
He can move well, and it's believable for his size. He's not that clunky.
He's not a big show.
Big guys. Oh, yeah. Or Mark Henry. Obviously, he's not the world's strongest man.
No, he's more of a Kevin Owens. He can move quick for somebody that size and very deceptive.
Yeah.
Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry's a great actor.
We can't have enough love for Joe Hendry in this household.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant actor. And he doesn't need a title right now. I was saying this while we were watching the match. Like, the one person that doesn't need to win this is Joe Hendry. He doesn't need a title. Rampage kind of doesn't need it.
Yeah, I like Rampage too. I want to see more of him for sure.
I'd like to see him build up that anger level a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Big Damo kind of doesn't need it. Like, he does, but he doesn't. The whole Adam Blumpier, so he'll get it back, but he doesn't need it right now.
No.
But Joseph Connors really needed this. When you look at the booking and so forth, they've booked him into a point where either he's going to win or he's going to lose, and he's going to lose forever.
Perpetual jobber.
Yeah, so they had to give him the title. They had to put him over.
Yeah.
So I thought the booking was spot on with that, of putting Joseph Connors over in this match.
Yeah, I didn't predict it. It definitely makes sense now when you spell it out, Ricky. I felt the pacing at the end went a little bit funny. Like it sort of
slowed down a little bit.
I know that it was a big grudge match between Rampage and Big Damo, and then when Rampage took Damo out, that gave Connors and Hendy the opportunity to carry on in the ring. And
I think the pacing.
What's Connors' finisher called again? That epic.
Smash his head down, DDT. Cradle DDT thing. Oh,
it looks horrible.
Look, I think the weird pacing though. I don't think the match had weird pacing. I think it was just how swift that turn was. That you're just like, wait, what? Huh? What's happening? And then it just happens so quick, and his face completely changes.
Yeah, and I guess with wrestling, we're so used to 1,000 false finishes before, and spot after spot and kick out, and
this just finished. And it worked for the match. I thought it worked for the story, it worked for the match, and it worked to get Connors over as a heel. Okay, so just a very quick overall. I really like Stacked. Like, one, I love WCPW as a product because I think they put on a great wrestling product. But I thought this show was well booked, well paced, well thought out, well planned, and had some amazing matches on it.
I'm going to contradict you and say I actually preferred last week's episode of Loaded overall, as an overall quality of the matches.
Okay. Okay, that's a big call.
Yeah, maybe it was just a bit too stacked for me in my ADD.
Fair enough. It could have been because it was a really long show.
Even though we watched it over 3 days.
Yeah, because it was a massive show. There was all way too much to undertake in one sitting. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a great pay-per-view quality show with some really big matches on it, some international talent to back it up, the introduction of a new division, being the women's division with the title, made some people, got some people over, and progressed their story arcs, met some new people. Yeah, really well thought out show.
It's just escalating, isn't it? It's just climbing and signs of things to come.
It's just getting bigger, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop.
And we love it. We love it.
And on that note, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for listening to our very, very long WCPW recap. We're also doing a retro game giveaway on the channel. There's a few videos that are tagged with giveaway details. Make sure you watch those for those details. I've been your host, the Stooge. I was joined by the knockout Fiona. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for listening, and King Ross, hit me up. Love you.